Let's say you panic bought. Let's say you bought way too much ramen. Good news is that ramen is highly customizable. So while you could just eat this, throw it into the boiling water and mix up that broth, what they call broth in there, and eat it, that's sustainable. But I'm going to teach you how to modify your ramen so that it is a meal you would want to share with other people. Another thing that I'm going to teach you today, and this is really the reason why I'm actually doing this, is so I can teach you my favorite cooking method. I'm going to teach you how to braise. And the good thing about this is that I'm teaching you a method. I'm going to tell you the recipe, but the method is the most important thing that I'm going to tell you today. And once you know this method, you can interchange anything for the ingredients that I tell you. So today we're going to be cooking ramen, and I'm going to show you how to modify it using braised pork.
Let's talk method. A braise is a wonderful way to make tough, fatty cuts of meat fork tender. The method I give you can be translated for all different kinds of animals. In fact, lots of dishes you already know are braised dishes. Beef dishes like pot roast or short ribs, chicken dishes like coq au vin, duck confit, pork carnitas or Schweinebraten. They're all braised dishes. Now, the method here is really easy. Step 1, prepare and sear the meat. Now, you want to remove any inedible tissue. Depending on how you're serving it, you can leave the meat whole or cut it up. I'm using about 3 pounds of pork shoulder cut into small chunks, so the final dish, I don't have to cut it after it cooks. It's going to be bite-sized. Once it's cut, salt and pepper it liberally. The salt's going to help it sear. Get your pan hot with a good bit of oil, neutral oil with a high smoke point, and then sear all the meat. If you're cutting it up and it won't fit in the pan without crowding, do it in batches. Once it's done, remove it from the pan. You're not cooking the meat all the way through here. It's still going to be raw on the inside. You just want to get a nice brown crust on it. Step 2, add your aromatics. Now, aromatics are the vegetables and flavorings that need to be cooked in high heat to release their flavor as the foundation for the dish. The meat is the first component of that foundation. The aromatics are the second. Now, in classical French cooking, I'd be using celery, carrots, and onions. The ratio would be 2 parts onion to 1 part carrot and 1 part celery. But this is an Asian dish, so I'm using a different set of aromatics. I'm going to use 1 yellow onion, 5 cloves of garlic, and 2 tablespoons of fresh minced ginger. You're going to want to cook all these on high heat in the oil to sweat them. Stir it frequently so they don't brown. The onion should look translucent when you're finished. I add the garlic and the ginger when the onion is almost done cooking because it's delicate and I don't want it to burn. Step 3, you want to deglaze the pan. While you cook the meat and the aromatics, you'll start to accrue some brown bits on the bottom of the pan. This is called fond. This is one of the things that gives braised dishes that deep, rich flavor. Pour in about 1/3 of the flavorful liquid into the pan. When you do this, it's going to pull up that fond into the liquid. Stir with a wooden spoon or some other utensil to scrape it up if it doesn't release immediately into the liquid. Once the fond is incorporated, add the meat back into the pan and then add the rest of your liquid. Very often, braised dishes don't have enough liquid to cover the meat. It only comes up about halfway. I'm using more liquid here because I want a broth at the end that I can use in my ramen. For this recipe, I'm using 4 cups of chicken stock. Step 4, add other flavorings. Some flavorings you use in your braise might be too fragile or might not need to be cooked on a high heat. Braises that use fresh herbs or sugars or other sauces will have those ingredients added after you add the liquid to the pan so they don't burn or disintegrate. I'm adding about 1/2 cup of mirin, a sweet Asian cooking liquid, 1/2 cup of soy sauce, and 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Step 5, cover and simmer. You're going to want to bring this to a boil. Once it boils, turn the heat down to medium-low to low and cover it. It's going to take a long time to cook. You can cook it from 1.5 hours to 3 hours. The time, it's pretty forgiving. As long as you pay attention to it, it's going to be hard to overcook. Stir occasionally to keep it from sticking, and add more liquid if it looks like it's getting dry. When it's fork tender, your dish is done. While it's cooking, I'm going to get my ramen garnishes cut and prepared. Now, I didn't have a lot on hand, but you can add a ton of ingredients to ramen to customize it. A quick couple internet searches and you're going to find a slew of ideas of things to add to your ramen. Today, I'm going to julienne some carrots for some crunch. I also made some tea eggs yesterday. I made some soft-boiled eggs by bringing some water to a boil and then adding the eggs and cooking them for 8 minutes. I peeled them and put them in a Ziploc bag with a couple of teaspoons of soy sauce and a couple of teaspoons of mirin. Then I let them sit overnight, and I'm going to cut them in half here. I'll also finely chop some green onion tops and sprinkle that on top of the finished dish. So once the pork is done, you can separate the meat from the broth. I like to strain the broth here to get out all the cooked onion. It really doesn't add anything. I'm not crazy about the texture. So now I'm not going to tell you how to cook your ramen. It's on the package. You can choose to cook it however you like. That being said, you can either use the broth that it comes with to supplement or accompany the broth you made with the pork or not use it at all. That's up to you. I used a bit of the broth for my ramen. I'm going to add carrots, pork, and the eggs, and then fill the rest of the bowl with my broth.
So I hope you enjoyed what we made today. I hope you used the method that I taught you today, the method of braising, and you're able to create some wonderful ramen that you would be proud to share with your friends. Thank you so much for watching, and if you like this video, please let me know in the comments below.